All right.
Wait a long time to say that.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the order of the meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. Today is November the 19th, 2024. The time is 9:34. I'd like to call up Major Ethan Frizzell from Salvation Army for the invocation. Please stand and come on up, sir.
Let us pray. In this month of the harvest, this season of thanks, we come before you. We acknowledge that this has been a time of politics, of policies, and of the challenging of ideas. But today, Lord, we join together. Let us respect one another, celebrate our shared purpose, and give thanks for your graciousness upon our county, our neighbors, our families, our Lee County. Today, Lord, we are one community. We lift up the commissioners before you. May you guide their questions, guide their decisions, guide their expectations, but above all, guide their hearts. May they be mindful of our businesses, our workforce, our residents, and our most vulnerable neighbors. May this community find peace in their leadership. May we find peace in our decisions together. We thank you for this beauty of this county, for those who have served before, for those serving today, our first responders, our teachers, our youth service workers, and all who give themselves through community organizations. Lord, we have so much to be grateful for, so we acknowledge you. We say thank you. Finally, we ask for your presence amongst us as we strive to be a community united in care, united in purpose, and united in love. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. All right. Good morning. The board would like to recognize, I would like the staff to put together this morning's ceremony reception. I'm sorry. I'll start that over. I would like to thank the staff this morning for everyone that put together the ceremony this morning. It was wonderful, nice and quick. We stayed right at the 30-minute mark, which was one of the commissioners' recommendations. So we did a great job there, sir. So I would like to just recognize that takes a lot to get all that together, and it was great to have our family in the chambers today. So thank you for doing all that. At this time, I would like to call the Clerk of Court, Kevin Carnes, to begin the annual reorganization of the board. I want to thank my colleagues for the last year, for having the opportunity to be the chairman here, and it's been a great honor. We have such a diverse board, and I think there's some great things that have been done in Lee County, and I think there's some greater things going to be done. And I'm very honored to have gotten reelected and continue to be a part of this board. But I just want to thank my colleagues because these are some of the finest men you'll find in Lee County, and I appreciate every one of them. Thank you, Chairman. All right, so at this time, I would like to recognize Kevin Carnes.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before we get started with the vote, I just wanted to take a few moments to recognize you all. Mr. Chair, thank you for your leadership this past year. It was an honor to work with you, and it's an honor to join you for your organizational meeting today. Commissioner Mullica, welcome to the group. It's an exciting day in Lee County's next chapter. You had a resounding victory, and I look forward to working with you in the coming years. And to my other colleagues, Commissioner Ruane and Commissioner Hammond, congratulations as well. I'm looking forward to your leadership of the county. And last but not least, Commissioner Pendergrass, thank you for all you've done for the community as well. As stated, it's part of my duty to do the reorganizational meeting where you choose your chair for the upcoming year. As ex officio clerk to the Board of County Commissioners, it's my responsibility to preside over that vote. We've done this before. This is my third time doing this. So we will open the floor for nominations. Nominations do not need a second. We will close nominations, of course, do a voice roll call, and at that point, we'll turn over the meeting to your new chair. So with that said, I will be happy to open nominations for the chair.
Mr. Clerk, I'd like to nominate District 1 Commissioner Kevin Ruane for chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Are there any other nominations?
I nominate Commissioner Wayne, too.
We have 2 nominations from Mr.
I
Rain.
nominate Commissioner Rain as well.
Okay. All right, well, we don't need a second, and I think that qualifies for a voice vote unless Commissioner Ruane abstains or does not accept the nomination. Mr. Ruane, congratulations. The floor is yours.
Thank you.
You got it, Brad.
Brian, put the hat on.
Thank you. Next, I'll take nominations for vice chair.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Commissioner Cecil Pendergrass for vice chairman.
Okay. Any other nominations? Seeing none, we'll close them. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not wearing the hat.
I'll race you to the middle.
Oh, is that the crown? Yeah, the crown, yeah. Good job, everybody. Appreciate it very much. Looking at the recap, there's nothing that we're going to need to address at the moment for the recap. We'll move on to consent agenda. Commissioner Hammond, do you have anything you'd like to pull?
Nothing to pull today.
Commissioner Pendergrass?
No items.
Commissioner Mullican?
The walk-on is going to be discussed separately?
Correct. This is
And
just
then-
consent. Anything you'd like to pull?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Greenwald? I don't either. With that in mind, I entertain a motion.
I make the motion to approve the balance of the consent.
I'll second that.
I have a motion, a second on the floor. Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Back up to the commission. Any other discussion? Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all. Next is the administrative agenda. County manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item is to award Disaster Assistance State Housing Initiative Partnership Grant Agreement, and I'd like to ask Mickey Rosalski to present the item.
Good morning, Commissioners. This item is a request to approve agreements to provide $5.9 million in State Housing Initiatives Partnership funding to 4 nonprofit housing development organizations to assist 87 very low and low-income households affected by the recent natural disasters in Lee County. The funds will be used to provide affected households assistance with down payments, owner-occupied emergency home repairs and rehab, mortgage expenses, insurance deductibles, and rental expenses. Funding will be awarded to Habitat for Humanity of Lee and Hendry counties, Rebuilding Together Tampa Bay, Lee County Housing Development Corporation, and the Center for Independent Living Gulf Coast. The SHIP program is solely funded by the state and is locally governed by the strategies in the Local Housing Assistance Plan, which allows the county to implement its disaster assistance strategy in the event a disaster is legally declared by executive order. And I'm here if you have any questions.
Questions from the... Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Hammond, second by Commissioner Pendergrass. Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment, bring it back up to the commission. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Mr. County Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item is to ratify emergency expenditures executed for Hurricanes Helene and Milton. I'd like to ask Mary Tucker to present the item.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Mary Tucker, Director of Procurement Management. Before you for approval are emergency hurricane ratifications for goods and services. First for Hurricane Helene in the amount of $347,400, and the second one is for Hurricane Milton in the amount of $973,232. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions? No question. I'll gladly move the item.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Wayne, second by Commissioner Greenwell. Open it to public comment. Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment, bring it back up to the commission. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, one note, I did notice on the recap, there was a correction made to this motion, so I assume your motion includes the correction that was listed on.
Correct. I believe that it was read on the record. Thank you. I appreciate it. Seeing nothing else, no one opposes, motion carries unanimously. Item number 48.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Amanda Swindle with the County Attorney's Office, and I have your first public hearing, which has been legally advertised. This public hearing is to adopt a resolution to approve the issuance of multifamily mortgage revenue bonds by the Housing Finance Authority of Lee County in an amount not to exceed $20 million for a project located in North Fort Myers. The board previously approved this issuance in an amount of $16 million. The increase of $4 million is requested in order to accommodate an expansion of the project and increased associated cost. Your approval is required under IRS regulations in order for the bonds to secure tax-exempt status, but these bonds do not constitute a debt or obligation of Lee County. If you have any questions, I'm available.
Any questions?
I have a question. What changes did the IRS ask you to make to spend $4 million?
These changes were not requested by the IRS, but by the Housing Finance Authority of Lee County in order to accommodate the expansion of the project. I believe they're going to build a larger project than previously planned.
So they're building more than 92 units?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, the paper says it's necessary due to changes by the IRS in its treatment of tax credit. That's why I asked.
I'm sorry. Yes. So the IRS changed the, and I'm sorry. I don't have the Housing Finance Authority attorney might have more detailed explanation of the actual treatment, but I believe that refers to the way that they compute the tax credit that is applied to that bond issuance associated with the affordable housing part of the project.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I move the item.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Pendergrass, second by Commissioner Hammond. Open up to public comment. No public comment. I'll close public comment. Bring it back up to the dais. Any other discussion? Anyone opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Item number 49.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Joe Adams with the County Attorney's Office. This hearing has been properly advertised, and I have the affidavit of publication for your clerk. So this is an ordinance establishing an anchoring limitation area in Bimini Basin and Cape Coral. This is being requested by the City of Cape Coral to limit the length of time vessels are anchored in the basin. If there's any questions, we're available, and the City of Cape Coral staff is available here as well.
Any questions? None. I'll gladly move the item.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Commissioner Wayne, second by Commissioner Hammond. Any public comment? Open to public comment. I'll now close public comment. Bring it back up to the dais. Any other conversation? Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next item, Mr. County Manager.
I believe that is the walk-on, Mr. Chair?
Correct. Sorry.
Thank you. The first item is to amend contract with Crowder Golf to collect commercial debris for North Captiva and Kea Costa. I would like to ask Amanda Condamina to present the item.
Good morning, Commissioners. The contract amendment, as you know, is to allow commercial collection in the outer islands. Commercial collection typically under FEMA guidelines is not reimbursable. Luckily, FEMA did secure a win for us and allowed for one pass of commercial collection, And with this, the contract that we have in place are geared for the residential right-of-way. Adding these services would provide us with the ability to collect from these outer islands that cannot be accessed by vehicle.
Thank you. I appreciate staff working real hard on this. It's difficult for the constituent to understand commercial isn't guaranteed to be picked up, and obviously it was a struggle because people get into certain habits of just moving the garbage out to the street, not recognizing that may or may not be reimbursable. So I'm glad we were able to work through that. Thank you very much. With that in mind, I'll move the item.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Commissioner Rain, second by Commissioner Hammond. I'll open up to public comment. Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment, bring it back up to the dais. Any other discussion? Seeing none?
Mr. Chair, I do have a couple of points I'd like to make.
Oh, sure.
on this, if you
Go
don't
ahead.
mind. Part of our responsibility is to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. And when I got the rate sheet on this last night, about 4 o'clock, we got this rate sheet. And I just wanted to, I'm glad FEMA's going to be reimbursing us for this. But, you know, as we know, there's nothing more expensive than something that's free. So just because the government tax dollars are paying for it rather than our local tax dollars doesn't mean it's not costing citizens in the national debt on these things. The rates and terms that were offered in this change order, I understand the timeliness of having to respond, and I'm glad the islands and the commercial services are getting what they need. But when they gave the rate sheet back to us with this change order last night, I want you guys to know that you're approving a rate that's for the household hazardous waste, things like pesticides and solvents and glass cleaner and things like that, $24 a pound for disposal, right? That translates to $48,000 a ton. And just so you know, Lee Hendry landfill only charges $150 to receive asbestos, right? And we're giving a rate of $48,000 a ton. Now, I realize there's double handling on a barge to get off from the island to a barge, off the barge to the land, but after that, it's in Lee County dry land, and we're charging rates that are exorbitant in this. So I hope we're getting reimbursed. But my understanding is we have to front the money to then pass a litmus test to make sure that we do get reimbursed for that. And if you look at the numbers on this, one 10-ton dumpster of that category would cost us $500,000 for one truckload. So that seems like a lot. So I just want to state that for the record. I won't stand in the way of this, but I still think it's our responsibility to be good stewards of this. And I think if somebody said we're going to charge $25 a gallon for gas after a hurricane, they'd call it gouging. These rates are extremely high. So I won't stand in the way of approval, but I do want you to know the market difference on that. Share that with you, please.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate the comments. Any other?
Chairman, could staff respond to the points that were made there? You know, curious about how far out those rates are out of line then with what our contract is with Crowder Call?
Absolutely.
All that.
Mr. Chair? I'd like to ask Amanda to respond to that question.
Commissioners, we'll actually have Mary Tucker, the Director of Procurement, come up to speak to the cost reasonableness and the aspects that we have to use to verify these rates.
Good morning. With the pricing, we do have to compare them to other rates that we have found. We have been working with the Monroe County, who also has some of the similar type items. So we have been working with them to compare all the pricing. We are still in the process of working our price analysis over this. But in our contract, the prices are broken down into almost individual units, where this one, they've actually lumped everything together because now you have the barging cost, which is not part of our original contract per unit price. So they are lumped in together. That's why the prices look so much higher than what's in our actual contract. But our contract through Crowder was procured through federal funding, so it meets all the requirements for FEMA. We're doing the change order to be under the guidelines of FEMA as well.
Okay. And I appreciate that. I think that answers my question to the colleagues. I don't know if anybody else has questions. Oh, Chair, before we vote on the item, then, one thing I think we could take into account, this obviously highlights the reason why we pre-position a lot of these contracts prior to an emergency, because when you're trying to negotiate in the middle of an emergency, you're negotiating from a real position of weakness, and obviously you're not going to get the best pricing during that, for sure. But maybe to the county manager, this is something that we can look at adding into that pre-positioned contract as we start to negotiate for next hurricane season, so that way it's something that's thought of in the future.
Mr. Chair?
Absolutely.
And Mary, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the problem with adding this component in commercial is it other than Ian and now, it hasn't ever been a reality. So typically when those contracts go out, they don't include it because the feds typically don't approve that. I think Ian was the very first time that actually happened, so.
That is
if you like-
correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
But if I may, it wouldn't hurt to have a contingency item for a bid, an ad alternate that you don't need. You can still price it in advance and use it or
Correct.
not use it.
We can do.
We can do that, yes.
Thank you.
I think that, if I may, I think that was just the reason why we didn't have it in this one, because the contract's out, but when we rebid it, we will add that component in there, so yeah.
I think that's what he was.
Thanks.
I have this kind of looking forward from this topic today, though. This is the future. If we have more storms in the future, small one or large storms. David, I know we talked a couple years ago, we talked about maybe having some more trucks on staff year-round here. So I know some of the smaller cities will actually have, like the city of Mars over the last couple of years, they're able to utilize their current trucks. They didn't have to wait for contractors to come in town for a few weeks. They didn't have these contracts with FEMA. They had their own brush trucks. They were able to pick up areas of small devastation where, obviously you have like another inn where you have millions of loads, but something smaller. Are we looking to expand our current fleet where you can add a couple of brush trucks, arm trucks to pick up debris on our elk and use our current facilities now without having to go through these contracts to obviously incur a whole lot more costs?
I'm gonna let Amanda answer this, but we do have trucks, and we initially engaged those trucks in the beginning of the.
Right, but having more though than what we currently have.
Yes.
So as we clean up throughout the county, our yearly maintenance of 2020 lands and as far as our DOT projects, we expanded that fleet a little bit more so we have more trucks on hand, ready to go the day after a storm, and having to wait weeks to have
Yep.
a vendor come in from out of state to do this.
No, I understand. I'm gonna let, you want to answer this? Okay, I want to make sure I got the right person. I understand the question. We do have a fleet of trucks, but there is some requirements, but I'm going to let Amanda discuss those.
Good morning again, Commissioners. Yes, for us to utilize our own internal equipment, there's a lot of tracking that goes into it. You have to do force account labor, force account equipment, and that is where it gets very tricky and very cumbersome. From FEMA's perspective, for federal reimbursement, it is much cleaner if we are using contracted that is already federally procured, pre-positioned. Luckily, in our Area 4 contract area, that contract was federally procured, and we are able to utilize the franchise hauler there to help assist with the debris collections, and that has been very successful, focusing on the more inland areas, while Crowder Gulf is focusing on the high impact areas along the water that sustained the most damage. I do believe that staff has had initial conversations with procurement on establishing a pre-positioned contract for a smaller scale activation where we would not have to activate Crowder Gulf, but I unfortunately have not been involved in those conversations, and maybe Mary could speak to it, but there have started discussions on those.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's really important, great conversation up here. I think it's really important to understand that the rules kind of changed a little bit from Ian. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea when we get together for strategic planning to talk about hurricanes, because I think, the issue we're faced with is the constituent has now gotten an expectation, once Ian occurred, that there would be a set of rules, and that's not always the norm. So what can we do to try to mitigate some of those types of issues, some of the expenses that go along with this? Because I understand David's point, it's a great point, but I think if we have opportunity to talk about these items, to address what we want to, and then obviously be prepared for the next storm, I think what you do from all storms is learn from them. And we've learned a great deal, and I'm grateful that we did get this approved, because either way, the constituent's not aware when they put debris out at the street that it is or isn't going to be reimbursed, or is or isn't going to be picked up. They got used to a new norm from Ian, and I don't know we're ever going to change their perception, and that's our issue. But I think it's a worthwhile conversation, and, you know, once a year we get together for strategic planning, and I'm sure we could talk about hurricanes, what we did well, and what we can learn from and do better.
No, and I to comment on that also, the county's done a very good job at clarifying this commercial pickup. We were talking about this before the meeting, and in Ian, you know, we're in all these trailer parks and in my other life, and people were lying, you know, poaching on the senior citizens and things, telling them if they push their house out to the curb, the whole house, that they'll pick it up on trash day next week, right? That was the perception that people were selling, some of these bad actors that the sheriff thankfully removed, you know, but there's a lot of that perception. If you push it out on the curb on the beach, people were, you know, concrete slabs for houses were pushed on the curb. That wasn't necessarily hurricane debris. You know, concrete doesn't float very far. So those are things that we have to lessen and communicate, but we have to make sure that we're clear on what this is intended to be and what it's not intended to be. And I think we're getting better at the messaging. We are getting older and wiser, and there's a lot of efforts and blood, sweat, and tears that got us to this point. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you.
I just think that we have to be clear that it's not free and it's not forever. We have to know what where the guide rails are so that people can respond accordingly. So thank you for all your efforts.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Anyone opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Let's do the second part of that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is to amend the contract with Thompson Consulting for commercial debris collection monitoring services for North Captiva and Cayo Costa. I'd like to ask Amanda Condomina to present the item.
Good morning again. As part of the debris collection requirement for FEMA, for every collection vehicle that is out there, it requires a debris monitor to ensure that the collection is in accordance with FEMA guidelines, that they're collecting properly. This amendment would add the services that would be needed, similar to the Crowder contract. It was not incorporated in there because of the commercial aspect on the barrier islands. This would add their ability for transport to get out to the islands, and then the UTVs they would need to travel along to follow the equipment.
Thank you for the explanation. Appreciate it. I'll gladly move the item.
I'll second it, Chairman.
Motion by Commissioner Rain, second by Commissioner Hammond. I'll open up to public comment. Seeing no public comment, I'll close it. I'll bring it back up to the dais. Any other conversation? Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. I believe that concludes our administrative agenda. Public hearings, walk-ons. Commissioner items. Commissioner Hammond.
None today, Mr. Chairman.
No items today. Commissioner Walker.
You guys got nothing?
No items.
Appreciate it. I don't have any items as well, so Commissioner appointments, Commissioner Hammond.
I have two reappointments, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to reappoint Dusty Gardner and Jennifer Sapin to the local planning agency.
Second. Motion is second. Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Bring it back up to the dais. Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Commissioner Pendergrass.
I have one reappointment, Ray Blacksmith to the LPA.
I'll second that.
Motion is second. We'll open to public comment. Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. I'll bring it back up to the dais. Any other conversation? Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Malika.
I'm going to hold all my appointments till at least the next meeting, please.
Okay. Mr. Greenwald.
I have three reappointments. Damon Scheller to the Bicycle Pedestrian Committee. John Prescott to Daltrey's Creek Street Lighting Unit Committee. And a reappointment of Don Russell to Local Planning Agency Committee.
I'll second it. Motion is second. I'll open up to public comment. I'll close public comment. Seeing none, I'll bring it back up to the dais. Any other discussion? Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I have five reappointments. One to the Local Planning Agency, Don Stoltenberger, and then 4 to the Cherry Estates Operations, Robert Pryor, Kevin Cherry, Jack Groth, and Ronald Payne.
Second.
Thank you. I'll go to public comment. Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. I'll bring it back up to the dais. Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Commissioners. County Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have one item today. The item involves flooding. We've experienced flooding quite a bit through a number of different storms. Unfortunately, the last three events, Ian, Helene, and Milton, were more storm surge events. So today, what we like to do, we like to present the webpage that we designed. I'd like to ask Mr. Roland Adelini to come up and speak to that item. This webpage gives a good description of what happened through Irma, as well as the most recent storms with a rainfall flood event versus a storm surge flood event. So, Roland?
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners. We'll wait a minute to bring it up. What I'd like to do is kind of walk you through some of the websites so you give it a familiarity of what is included, and also to be able to direct your constituents as well to find out more information. A little bit of loading time. There we go. So we put this webpage together to give more information out there in terms of the recent storm events we've realized. And so we broke it up in 4 different sections. First part kind of gets into a flooding 101. What type of flooding do we experience in Lee County? Then we go into flood mitigation efforts that Lee County currently does in response to these storms. And then we look at, the third item is to look at the recent storm events and do a comparison in terms of their tracks and the wind speeds and such. And then finally, we have a frequently asked question section. So let's start here. Again, flooding, people can walk through this. Basically, it's the most common widespread all weather-related natural disasters in the U.S. The types of flooding that we experience here often is, number one, the riverine flooding due to rainfall. Now, this is when we have several days of rainfall, several inches, up to 10 inches or 12 inches of rainfall in a watershed. All that water works its way into the numerous creeks and streams we have, and it starts going out of the bank. And then if you live in the floodplain, you're going to experience water in your yard or possibly in your house in some cases. We've had historic events throughout Lee County over the years, not just associated with hurricanes, but we've had flooding in Bonita Springs in 92, 95, and they were just frontal activity that caused some issues. Eventually, these creeks do discharge into Charlotte Harbor, Caloosahatchee River, Estero Bay before all that water makes its way out to the Gulf of Mexico. And something unique to maybe not necessarily Lee County only, but sheet flow. This is that water that starts working its way in the upper parts of the watershed. We see a lot of this when you've had, over the whole summertime, you got a lot of rainfall. It works its way down to our creeks. We've seen it where all that water comes in from Charlotte County into North Fort Myers. Water moves real slow. It finally makes its way into creeks. That water can stand for days, even weeks. We also experienced that in Bonita Springs, too, the eastern part of Bonita Springs, the headwaters of Imperial River. Flash flooding, this is your typical summer afternoon, high-intensity rainfall, dumps 2-3 inches of rain. Takes a little bit of while to water drain out, but it eventually removes itself in a few hours. And then, of course, storm surge. People can click on this link. This is associated with the low pressure systems that we get, tropical cyclones like hurricanes, where the wind field is so strong, the energy coming in with that storm is just pushing water up, even miles into tidal creeks up into Lee County. And of course, with hurricanes, you can get a combined situation where you have a lot of rainfall from the feeder bands as well as the storm surge. And until that storm surge and tide levels go down, you're not getting a lot of relief. So when that finally works its way out, you start seeing some flood and drainage. And moving on to flood mitigation efforts, Lee County, several departments get involved with this. Lee County Department of Transportation, our office, Natural Resources, Community Development, we all have different roles to play in this. We clean and snag natural creeks and streams with things blocking a flowway. We also have an agreement with South Florida Water Management District where they maintain 13 of our creeks and streams. And of course, DOT has responsibility of maintaining hundreds of miles of ditches and culverts, or ditches and canals, and the numerous culverts, water control structures like weirs and their gate system, make sure they're operating properly. And this is a continuous year-round activity, and they do an awesome job of doing that. Put it in perspective, though, these drainage systems that we have in place, they can't handle the super extreme events sometimes that a hurricane can deliver. They're not designed to handle 15, 20 inches of rainfall. They're basically dealing with 5, 10-year, 25-year recurrence level of storm capacity, level of service. So that's really overtaxed when you get these extreme events. But they do, on a terms of a summer afternoon or those rainfall events, they do function very well. We developed the flood mitigation plan in response to Hurricane Irma back in 2017. We're completing a coastal vulnerability study, which is an assessment of all of our critical infrastructure to make sure that they are looked at in terms of rising sea levels and if they need to be protected down the road. We also have the Resilient Lee response to Hurricane Ian. That long-term recovery strategy has been published. DCD enforces the FEMA regulations, elevation standards for new construction and rebuilds. And of course, we pursue grant funding, HMGP funds for capital improvements for flooding. We also install and maintain a network of gauges out there, rainfall, groundwater, surface water, and tide gauges that track flooding. There's some useful information for folks out there that, they have a drainage issue. They can look up and see if their county maintained road. There also is a request for action website that they can put in their concern, and somebody will go out there and inspect it to see if, what the situation, troubleshoot the issue. If they can, either DOT can take care of it or they'll report it to us in certain situations. Then we do a comparison to recent storm events, and this is kind of germane comment here. It's important to remember that no two storms are alike, because a lot of people, when they're flooded, they say, well, we didn't flood during this storm, but here we did, we didn't. And there's a lot of factors involved: the storm size, the wind strength, how much rainfall we got out of it. Is there tornadic activity associated with it? Rotation of storm obviously is counterclockwise, and so the storm path is critical then who gets the hardest hit. And so we got a lot of neat graphics there showing the various storms. Then we look at a comparison, just an overview of the folks like to compare to Charlie versus Irma, Ian, Milton, and Helene. And it's important to notice Irma was to the south and east of us. And so that is typically not the strongest side, but we had a lot of rainfall associated with Irma. Remember, we had in some areas, when you count the Invest 92L 2 weeks prior, we received almost back-to-back 100-year storm events, or combined, it's like a recurrence interval of 1,000-year events. So that was very unique. However, all these other ones where we received storm surge, except Charlie, and I'll get into that, we were on the dirty side of the storm, on that right side of the storm. And that's where you're having a counterclockwise rotation, plus the tracking of the storm also adds that momentum into our system. That's where those onshore winds, you get a lot of the storm surge. And so we get into a lot of discussion of the different types. They said, well, we didn't have storm surge for Charlie. If you recall, that was a quickly moving storm, very small. It was almost like a buzzsaw that came through Lee County. And it made that wobble into our area, across near Cayo Costa. But the storm surge was not as extreme as Ian. It is actually associated, because it was coming so fast, it was also associated during low tide. So we did not experience the surge that we did in terms of like what Ian had. Ian, as you know, has a much bigger footprint. And there's some neat graphics here. You can see this difference in the size of the major storm, hurricane wind field. So there's comparison. We also add some National Hurricane Center reports so folks can get more information on the details of those storms. And like I said, Irma, that was south of us, east, and basically we're on the left side of it, so that was really a major rainfall event for us. And then we get a little information here in terms of the rainfall amounts. You got Ian, where we had maybe 5 to 7 inches of rainfall, but compare that to Irma. Irma is up to almost 25 inches of rainfall. And we do some comparisons. We have gauges. There's a couple. For instance, here in Caloosahatchee, this is the tide gauge by the marina there, and then also there's a gauge that we have on Hendry Creek by Gladiolas, and you can see how they both rise for these storm events. These are elevations recorded in NAVD. It's a vertical datum used for county for survey purposes. And then the anomaly was for Irma, because Irma was associated with a lot of rainfall, and so Caloosahatchee is very large capacity, so it didn't experience the rise as something smaller like a Hendry Creek. So that was rise much higher because of the amount of rainfall it had to deliver. Of course, folks want to compare Helene and Milton. Very similar. Helene, as you know, kind of hugged offshore along, but we had that long-standing onshore winds caused storm surge. Very little rainfall, as depicted in here. You can zoom in. It's kind of neat. You can pull up actually rainfall data. We also had tracking the storm surge through this Coastal Emergency Risk Assessment website. It gives you a kind of spatial distribution of the storm surge. We also do this for Milton as well, the rainfall and the surge. We, as well as you have, got a lot of calls from constituents in certain flood-prone areas. We attempt to address some of those concerns. So we address the Island Park, 10-Mile Canal area. And we provide a kind of a table of those different storms, the amount of rainfall that was delivered, as well as water elevation by the nearest gauge near their community. And you can see Irma is really sticking out here as an outlier, the amount of rainfall. Same thing for Buckingham, Orange River. You heard a lot from the Coyle Road folks. Same thing, kind of a table showing the rainfall amounts. Caloosahatchee River between the 41s. Again, same kind of information. Heritage Farms, close to Hendry Creek. Again, same type of information. And then what we did was we looked at some high water marks that were surveyed in, and we developed these inundation maps. So if it's blue, it had water on it. The lighter blue is less of depth, but the deeper is obviously where the water bodies are. And this is in the Island Park area. And you can see all those people there had water inundation. And if it's clear, if it does no shading, then they're dry. Again, this is from, this is just extrapolation of LIDAR data, so survey data. There are some neat links here. People can go in here and look up their property and find out what the elevation of the property is and actually draw a profile. And you can compare that to water levels. And we also provide some information, data sources for people to find more information. And then we get into flood frequently asked questions. My home has never flooded before. Why now? We have tide, flap gates to protect our community. Why did we flood? How did our maintenance mitigate flooding? Will dredging and vegetation removal, flooding, increase flood capacity, so on and so forth. Also have a link to define your flood zone, which is very helpful right here. And lastly, we have an opportunity for people to sign up for our newsletter to provide updates. We're continuing post-processing storm data with our tide gauges. We're also pursuing the NOAA weather station as well. So there'll be, hopefully there'll be updates as we get more and more information. And so I'd like to thank the communications team for all their effort in putting into this, and also to our responders out there for flooding, DOT operations who maintains our drainage system, and my staff who put a lot of this information together. So I'll entertain any questions you may have.
Any questions for Roland?
I have a question just maybe for the whole, administration or whatever, or even us as a board to talk about. But so Roland, first of all, thank you so much for explaining this. I think this does a really good job of helping people understand what happened to them and why the flooding happened to them, especially the different types of storms. I think this is really well done. My question is, number one, I think there's a lot of great information here. How can we make sure we get it in the hands of the people who would like to see it? Because I know we've put up the website, but people don't naturally just go to a website. We need to help promote this so that they'll know to go there. And then the second question I have is maybe more of a strategic planning session question. But obviously, I'd like to find out how many homes do we have that were built prior to the latest codes, that homes that are maybe built more at the ground level or lower in some cases even, that obviously are dealing with repetitive loss flooding. So these homeowners obviously know that they flood. They know, and great, we can explain to them why they flooded, but they still need help in trying to figure out, okay, so what do I do next so that I don't have to repair over and over again. And that's some of the, I think those solutions are some of the things that I would love to have conversations about as well.
Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Yes, Commissioner, I think that's a great idea, specifically based on the fact that you guys discussed having a discussion about hurricane preparedness and what to do in the future. We do have some repetitive loss information that we can provide. We'll prepare you way ahead of the strategic planning session, but we do have that information, obviously, through all the FEMA things we've been doing recently. We're very cognizant of that, so we can provide you that information. On the communication component, I'd like to ask Ms. Brady to give you an update on what we're doing regarding the website and just in general what we do typically to get information out to the community. Christy?
Good morning, Commissioners. To your point, yes, how do we get this information out to the citizens of Lee County? And so we've already sent out a press release yesterday to all the major news outlets so that, one, they were aware that this briefing was happening today, because we wanted to encourage our citizens to tune in to Lee TV to get this. And then we will continue to do social media posts with the links providing this information and do some paid boosts so that we're casting a wide net there. And then I do believe that we have some media here today that is following this story, and that my understanding from our PIO, Betsy Clayton, is that there are some reporters here who would like to have some follow-up conversations with the board and staff to talk about this, so that can continue to help be promoted. And we always shamelessly ask for folks to sign up for our newsletter, because we do a lot of information where we push that out. So in addition to our regular newsletter that we send out, we will do special editions where we're sending information. And then the communication team also maintains a email list of citizens who have already said that they are interested in this type of information. And for communities that we have email lists that we can specifically send out to those communities that may be more interested because they are a community that is impacted. So we'll send that information out as well. And then last but not least, we do have our Joint Information Communication Team, our JIC as we call it, and that has all of the partner agencies throughout Lee County, from the school districts to the hospitals to the fire departments. The list goes on and on. We will send this press release and this link out to those so that they will share it within their agencies as well.
Good. No, that's great. Thank you very much for that answer. And it sounds like we've got the digital and electronic communications just completely covered here, and I appreciate that. And I do hope our media partners are going to help us get the word out to the people that this information is available to them too. One other thought I had, just interested to hear your thoughts too, if we could figure out maybe how much it would cost to send a postcard, if there's a way you could get a geo-targeted postcard to some of the areas that are more prone to flooding, that would just point out that this website's available and this information's here. If they wanted to learn more about it, they could go to the website and then find it. I've noticed that direct mail seems to work as a good form of advertising to get people's attention to go somewhere and to find more information. So I'm throwing that out there as an idea if you guys are interested in it as well.
I was going to, good Chairman, I was going to bring that up, but also if the target areas, for example, we know like Island Park, there's just 2-3 streets, like Tidewater Street or some other street. Almost we have staff, you can go like door hangers. I know we've done it before with utilities. Utilities use door hangers, anything like that, to use that to target the small areas with a couple hundred cluster homes and get that information to people's hands, along with the mailers too. Yeah. In the county-wide, Fort Myers, Buckingham, and different areas, but when you have a small area, it's a dense area like Heritage Farms, for example, or Hendrick Creek, or that, or Fort Myers, one street that flooded, you can just target that one street.
I mean, I certainly believe, what you're advocating, Commissioner Hammond. I think when we get to strategic planning, I think there's multiple parts to this. I'd like to act on what you're referring to obviously push this message, but I think we could certainly talk about 3 or 4 or 5 different silos underneath hurricanes that we can deal with. And that's kind of what I have in mind, to try to understand that and maybe just take 2 steps back and reassess again and launch. But any thoughts, Commissioner? County Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, added to what Ms. Brady stated, we also have gone out, our staff and some of the administrative team, including myself, have gone out into those communities and spoke to them directly in their community to discuss those issues. We could do direct mailers, and I can get a cost for you for the next meeting if you choose. We've done that regarding some of the things we did recently with FEMA. So we can get that cost for you and bring that in at the next board meeting if everybody so chooses.
That would make a lot of sense.
Okay.
Any other items?
No.
Okay. Appreciate that. That concludes your report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I have today.
County Attorney.
Nothing further, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll go to public presentations by citizen. Joe Schottmeyer. Joe, you still here? Come on up, Joe.
Good morning, everybody. As you know, my heartstrings are always for those that are on the street that need to be in places. Mr. Hammond, you noticed a couple of years ago, about over a year ago, I said we were looking at some property in the Suncoast area. Since then, in April, we finally were able to purchase it from the owner. I've talked to Charlie at the Community Center, and it's about creating some type of housing. You have a large drug addiction in that area, is to help women. So it was owned by an old plumber. It's a 1964 trailer with a garage, and it's to get it where it's an aid to the community center, money coming in to aid that, and a community at large, not just Suncoast, okay? The Homeless Coalition, I took a class, I remember a while back from the Homeless Coalition. I turned over the money they gave me to buy clothing and stuff for the people. But they had said that they would help with materials, okay? So I've got a lady builder that when she's got time is going to go look at the property. And I also brought up to our new city councilwoman that took over for Johnny Street. She's an architect. So working together, we can better our communities and also get other housing. I understand, Cecil, that the triage is closed down, but you know, we could sandblast mold if it's on concrete, you know, so that could be utilized. What needs to be torn down, tear out. Same with the building here in Fort Myers. The fire station could be utilized. So working together, we can set up things that bring in revenue. Nobody said a free lodge or a shelter. We're saying affordable places, emergency, until efficiencies like Lois Healy and others are built, and that's bringing in revenue, okay? So I gave my spiel. As you see, I came from City Gate, helping them. I also told the chief of police, I said, you might as well arrest me now. I mean, I got no place to go. I mean, we could have put a hostel down here, and I would have stayed there and put a contribution in, you know? So working together, like I said, we can make a change. So the Homeless Coalition, I'd like them to get a hold of me and keep the word on that. And the ladies and the lady that just was elected, she's going to check her agenda. She's got some issues, she said, for the homeless. So she was elected. I'd like to hear what her plans. And like I said, together we can do that. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Next public speaker, Yolanda Perez. Yolanda Perez. I said your first name wrong. I apologize.
Hello. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I would like to address the issues of the construction on Colonial and how that's affecting traffic, and it's having delays with people getting to work and getting to school on time. And I would like to address how it's been extended for multiple months and even like a few years, and how I would like for that to be more managed better so that way it can foresee the end of the project so we can see the results in better traffic movement. Thank you.
If we could, Chairman, if we could, we can have staff talk to you after. That's the city of Fort Myers and the state project. It's not a county project. So we can have DOT staff talk to you after the meeting and give you some information about that.
Okay, thank you.
We have no oversight of that project. Thank you, though.
Thank you.
Those are all the cards I have, but I will certainly entertain if anyone would like to speak a public comment. Raise your hand. Come on up.
Good day, Commissioners. My name is Daniel Becker. I have been a constituent of District 2 for the past 20 years. The past months have definitely challenged all of us in charting a path toward continuing how to live in paradise. And congratulations on your election outcomes. For decades, I have worked with a lot of design and planning regulations, some good, some not so good. The Lee Plan, which was first drafted 40 years ago, is Lee County's guide for regulating all land development activities within Lee County. Since first being drafted, there have been multiple revisions to the Lee Plan. And currently it has over 200 amendments added to it, with more added at every Planning Commission meeting. Because of this, it is the equivalent of regulatory Swiss cheese. The current plan has a lot of goals, a lot of objectives, and too many encouragements. Rather than requirements, for instance, under community facilities and services, it says, encourage, not require or incentivize, new developments to design surface water management systems with best management practices, including but not limited to infiltration marshes, grassland swales, native Florida-friendly landscaping, etc., etc. I think we all get the wishy-washy nature of some of this document. Encouragement is the equivalent of a kiss and a promise. In other words, developers will not do something unless they are required to do it and to do the right thing, or that helps their projects. It is imperative development respond to contemporary conditions and standards like rising oceans, more frequent intense storms, and more people wanting to live in Lee County. The realities of today and the future effects of a changing world to places like Fort Myers Beach, Matlacha, Lehigh Acres, and right here in downtown Fort Myers need to be addressed. Some in this room probably think climate change is a hoax, and from looking at fundraising records have yet to meet a developer or contractor who they would not take a political contribution. That's the reality of politics today. However, it is time to take a long-term approach to regulating design, construction, and development in Lee County. The Lee County Board of Commissioners needs to move forward with an approach on how to overhaul the Lee Plan so it aligns with the realities of today and best practices for tomorrow. You might be asking, why is this person concerned about the Lee Plan? The answer is because I care about our community, and having a more proactive Lee Plan is one way to positively affect the quality of life for all county residents.
Thank you for your comments. Your time's up.
So with that, thank you.
Officer.
Good morning. I'm also here to talk about screen enclosures specifically, and I was here half a decade ago, and I did a lot of work with the building department and the building official, Mr. McNulty, and we really were able to add a lot of things to the process of screen enclosures to make them not fail. And I gave out new samples to the code enforcement officers of different meshes, because before they weren't looking at, there's a no-CM mesh and a standard mesh in an enclosure. Where the trade association really didn't take into consideration is all the failures we found after the last hurricanes, where eventually the screen is changed and they're not putting in the same screen that was designed for the enclosure. And I talked to the county and they're like, look, we don't police screens. There's no permit for it. We don't have the resources. And if we could get the picture windows to have the screen that the enclosure is designed, it would be really, it help tremendously. That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah. And the last time I spoke with, I think so you have a representative from the county here?
There's representatives.
Oh,
here.
like, just the building department, excuse me, yeah. Just the building department, just, who's the, like?
I'll certainly get someone to reach out
Thank
to you after the meeting. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Any other public comment? Come on up.
Good morning. My name is Joyce Campana. I'm a Lee County resident of District 2. The last time I requested an update regarding FEMA insurance community rating discount was before this meeting, this body, on October 1st. I'm here again requesting the same information. In the beginning of 2024, the board established the FEMA website to keep citizens updated. You have not been very successful at this because the website has not been updated since August 5th. But I called FEMA, and I know you sent the information in, so it'd be nice if you'd put it out there. My question is simple. Has all the information been provided by November 18 to FEMA as described in that July 19 letter from FEMA to Dave Harner? FEMA outlined information required by September 16 and November 18 to prevent our community rating system participation from being retrograded to Class 10 effective April 1, 2025. It is my understanding from my recent conversation with FEMA, they will be deciding that shortly, hopefully this week. Would have been nice if I could have heard that from you guys and on the website, but I emailed my commissioner asking about the progress and status of the county's request to FEMA. My email was forwarded to the county manager, who provided no helpful information in his responses. In an email response, I was told that a draft was sent to FEMA on September 16. Why wasn't this document provided to me when I requested it by email from the county manager on October 17, 2024? Why wasn't this information posted on your website that you asked be developed to keep the citizens informed? I will continue to ask the following questions. Why wasn't the document that was sent to FEMA on September 16 posted to the website? Once it was sent, it was no longer a draft. I believe it was an open records public document, yet not posted for the public to read. Has the required information been completed and sent to FEMA by the November 18 deadline? It would still be nice to have that information posted. Why do citizens have to ask every time for transparency? According to the county's website, nearly 700,000 residents are impacted by FEMA's discount with an annual discount savings of $14 to $17 million. Since this issue directly affects so many people, why won't you commissioners put it on the county board meeting agenda until the decision about that discount of 25% is determined by FEMA on or before April 1, 2025? I ask that you put that on the agenda again, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. And anything else for us? Seeing none, I'll call for an adjournment. Thank you all.